In the peaceful city of Yokohama, Sato Hiroshi, a 32-year-old engineer, married Ayako, the only daughter of Mrs. Miyazawa Haruka, a widow who has lived alone for more than 10 years. Haruka is 48 years old, working as a manager at a traditional grocery store. She is gentle and calm, always loving her daughter, and has special respect for her son-in-law. One weekend afternoon, Ayako had to go on a sudden business trip to Osaka for 3 days. Hiroshi was home alone, the stress of work making him irritable and moody. Haruka was worried, so she stopped by the apartment to see how her son-in-law was eating, drinking, sleeping, and thinking. When he opened the door, Hiroshi was a little surprised but still tried to smile. Haruka was carrying a few bento boxes and a bag of fruit. "I'm just afraid you won't eat on time. My people must keep an eye on you." Hiroshi let out a small laugh. The atmosphere was normal at first. Haruka set the table, poured tea, and Hiroshi sat across from her, looking at that familiar, gentle figure. But because of loneliness, stress, and a little bit of alcohol from before, his mind began to run into deviant thoughts. As Haruka crumbled to the floor and the towel fell, Hiroshi suddenly thought of the emptiness in his heart and felt like he needed some kind of closeness. He stepped closer, his eyes flashing with the intention of crossing the line. Haruka immediately realized that her son-in-law was acting abnormally. His breathing was rapid. His eyes were dull, as if he was struggling with distorted emotions. She stepped back slightly, but her voice remained calm. "Hiroshi-kun, is something wrong?" "You're not like usual," that gentle voice seemed to bring Hiroshi back to his senses. He stopped, his hands gripping the arms of his chair, his face red with shame and embarrassment. "I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm like this. I just felt empty when I left." Haruka didn't blame him. She just placed her hand on Hiroshi's shoulder, keeping enough distance to avoid any misunderstandings. Being single sometimes makes people confuse their feelings. "I'm not angry with you, but you have to understand if you do something wrong. The one who will be hurt the most will be Alko." Hiroshi bowed his head, his voice trembling. "I know I will never let that happen." Haruka smiled gently. She left a kind message. "Even though Igo is not home, you are not alone. Family is always here. If you are tired, tell me, but never try to fill the void with mistakes." That night, Hiroshi was alone in the dark apartment, filled with remorse. He sent a message to Alko. "I miss you so much when you come back." Alko responded with a cute sticker. Hiroshi smiled slightly the first time in days. As for Haruka, on her way home in the cold Yokohama wind, she let out a soft sigh. Not out of anger, but out of pity for her son-in-law, who was struggling with the same loneliness she, herself, had experienced during her many years of widowhood. And she knew a strong family is, not because it can avoid storms, but because there is someone calm enough to keep the boat from capsizing. Late winter in Yokohama casts a soft gray over everything. Sato Hiroshi sits at the dining table in his small 14th floor apartment, a glass of sake uncorked. His wife Ayako has just left for a 3-day business trip to Osaka, the first in months. Normally Hiroshi doesn't mind, but his work at the engineering firm has left him exhausted and prone to emotional turmoil. The silence in the apartment is so overwhelming that his heart feels strangely empty. On the evening of the second day, Ayako was away. The doorbell rang. When Hiroshi opened it, he saw his mother-in-law, Miyazawa Haruka, standing at the door with a large bag of food. She was wearing a light gray wool coat, her face as warm as ever, but with a hidden worry that was hard to describe. "Hiroshi-kun, I brought you some bento. Aiko took the opportunity to notice you, because you've been looking after her for the past few days." Hiroshi forced a smile, a little embarrassed at being babysat, but still stepped aside to let her in. "I'm just a little tired from work." "Don't worry," Haruka set the food on the table, poured tea, and asked questions like a real mother. That gentleness should have made Hiroshi feel comfortable, but instead, it stirred up the emptiness he was trying to suppress. A fleeting moment passed through his mind, like a flash of an unhealthy thought, a confusion between love for his family and a desire to fill the emotional void. Haruka bent down to pick up the fallen towel, and in a moment of uncertainty, Hiroshi stepped closer to her, as if seeking some kind of closeness. Haruka raised her head immediately, noticing the unusual look in her son-in-law's eyes. She paused but maintained her usual composure. "Hiroshi-kun," she said softly but firmly. "Are you not feeling well? I see you're not your usual self." The words were like a strong stew that pulled Hiroshi back to reality. He stood there, his face burning with embarrassment. "Hi, I'm sorry. I just felt lonely when ICO was away. I didn't mean to. I don't know what I was thinking." Haruka kept her distance, not blaming. Just put her hand on Hiroshi's shoulder, sympathetic but still with enough boundaries. Loneliness can make people misunderstand emotions. "I'm not angry with you, but you have to remember just one wrong action. ICO will be the one who will be hurt the most." Hiroshi bowed his head deeply with a rising sweat. "Yes, I know. I'm sorry, Haruka." Cleaned everything up, and before leaving, she smiled gently. "Family is not a place for you to hide your tiredness. If you need to talk, tell me. But absolutely do not try to fill the void with something that makes you regret." The copper coin returned. The scale became even quieter than before. Hiroshi sat down on a chair, holding his head in his hands. For the first time in months, he wondered if he had gone too far in his thoughts. He texted ICO, "Be careful on your way back." "I miss you." ICO sent him a smiley face sticker with a heart, which made him feel lighter. The next day, Igo returned. She immediately felt the change in her husband. His gaze was quiet, his body was like a string. "Hiroshi, did anything happen while I was gone?" she asked while unpacking. Hiroshi tried to avoid it, but his wife's insincere look made it impossible. He only said part of it, "I was too stressed. I felt like I couldn't control my emotions. But your mother helped me regain my composure." Igo was surprised but also felt warm. "Mom came to visit you. I know she worries about you a lot. When Dad died, she also experienced loneliness, so she understands you." That statement made Hiroshi even more embarrassed, but also made him understand better why Haruka reacted so calmly. That afternoon, Aiko went to see her mother to ask what had happened. Haruka looked at her daughter with a mixture of love and worry. "Strong, well, I believe my son-in-law is the one who knows. Hiroshi is just tired. Don't stop standing." But Ayako's intuition told her that something was still wrong. That evening, while the couple was having dinner, Igo asked, "Tell me the truth. What did you do to scare Mom?" Hiroshi was silent for a long time. The ticking of the clock's hands was clearer than usual. Finally, he said, "I approached my mother when I was unconscious. But she held me back. I haven't did nothing wrong." But just that intention alone made him feel like he was falling. Icio was sobbing, not angry but hurt. Knowing how exhausted her husband was to have his mind so disturbed, she took his hand, her voice trembling slightly. "Hiroshi, how long have you been suffering alone?" Hiroshi didn't reply, but the look in his eyes was enough for Ayako to understand that the 3 days of loneliness were just the last straw in months of heavy pressure. That night, Igo hugged him for a long time. No blame, no anger, only the sympathy of someone who chose to be with him for life. The next day, the two went to Haruka's house. Hiroshi bowed deeply to her. "I'm sorry for making you worry. I promise I'll never let myself get into that situation again." Haruka smiled gently. "That's okay. Family exists to hold us up, not to judge us from the kitchen." The smell of hot miso soup wafted up, like a scent of peace. Haruka placed the bowl of soup in front of the couple and said, The strongest family is not the one that has no storms, but the one that knows how to hold each other's hand. When the storm rises, Hiroshi looked at the two most important women in his life and understood that what he needed was not a temporary, emotional fill-up, but learning to face the loneliness and fear within. Yokohama was brighter than usual that afternoon. As if after a small storm, the sunlight had found its way through the windows,